Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. A little cold this morning, about 18 degrees. Got a little bit of glaze of ice last night and supposed to be getting some snow and other types of mixed precipitation today. So it'll be fun for the next couple of days. I don't think it's going to be too bad. Doesn't look like it's going to be any kind of real dangerous kind of weather, but it is a little cold out. Yesterday we had our big monthly meeting. Wow, it was amazing. It was awesome. I would say if it wasn't the most we've ever had at a meeting, it was certainly number 2 or 3. It was standing room only. We had to pull all the extra chairs out. People just kept pouring in. I thought it was just amazing because I really didn't promote it that much. You know, it's now it's just kind of feeding off of its own self. In fact, there were several families there, and this always makes me happy. There were several new families that came yesterday. I had no clue that I even do YouTube videos or anything like that. They weren't coming because, you know, they watch this channel or they hear about me. They came because of word of mouth. They were invited by people. People were telling them, hey, you know, you do that homestead prepper kind of thing. There's a big meeting they have up there every month, the people around here. And that makes me really happy to see that kind of growth. Nothing, you know, against you folks watching this channel, but that's the real kind of growth that I want to see. Went really, really great. Had a great time. Just an amazing meeting. I just can't say enough good things about it. Our little open market area that we have in the building is really growing. A lot of people that make things, even children. There's a young boy there that he's learning how to forge knives, make knives, and he's doing a really good job. He's, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. I can't remember his age. And so he was bringing those, made a few bucks. Other people, in fact, I got another hat, another watch cap. There were, you know, children that had made like oven mitts and hot pads, and there was a couple there that they make colloidal silver and was selling that. There was another family that they make all kinds of like treats, you know, food, that kind of stuff. So they had a bunch of baked goods and candies and things that they make. And most all of these people are okay with some type of alternative currency. It's not required, but it is encouraged. And usually, there was t-shirts, coffee, that kind of stuff. But usually they're okay with, you know, working out some kind of alternative currency than the Federal Reserve notes. So just a great meeting altogether. Wanted to answer a question that came in on the email. I don't always do this, but I figured this one was a good one to answer because I suspect there are several people in this place. And so the email basically was this person saying that, hey, you know, this is kind of an overview of where we are in our preparations. And we feel like we've got a lot of things going, that we're a little ahead of the game, especially over most people. You know, we have your food supply, we have this set up for alternative heating and a place to live and acreage and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And they asked, well, where do we go from there? You know, we've covered the basics. If you look at most what I would consider basic prepping, you know, lists and stuff, we've covered pretty much all that. Now, where do we go from there? And I think that's where a lot of people are at, because if you've been a prepper for any length of time, or even just recently gotten into it, a lot of the information out there, and I'm not knocking it, I'm not being negative, so don't think that, but a lot of the information out there is kind of, I don't know, vanilla when it comes to preparations, you know, and it's the things that I talk about on here. Food, you know, year or two supply of food, some medicines, a water source, water able to purify the water, you know, heat source, you know, potentially some land where you can, you know, grow some stuff, be out and away from the cities, and you're prepared. Well, what do we do from there? Because what I just described to you is a pretty good level of preparedness for, you know, if there's storms, if you lose your job, or you become injured, or there's, power outages for, days or even a few weeks at a time. Disruption of the supply chain, kind of like what we had a couple of years ago, that kind of, lockdowns, that kind of stuff. Well, what do we do when we're preparing for pretty much a collapse of everything? When we're looking at the tea leaves, so to speak, and we see that things aren't going very good, and there's a pretty decent chance of everything just kind of crashing down around us. So what do we do then? Well, you need to kind of get into the more advanced, I would say, prepping. And so for someone like this that emailed me, what you listed was very good. There was nothing wrong in that list, but just keep moving forward. Keep expanding on that. Look at your ability for, let's say, tools. Can you repair things and build things? Do you have the hardware to do that? Do you have parts to repair things? Spare parts for your vehicles? Maybe a vehicle that's easier to work on, that it may not be your daily driver, but can it be your apocalypse vehicle, because it's just easy to buy parts for, it's easy to fix, it's cheap to store a few things back because you can pick them up at junkyards. Something like that, an older pickup truck or something. Do you have the tools and the ability to do things more in a primitive way if that's needed? I use the example all the time, but we burn wood for heat around here, and for the most part I cut it myself, and of course I use a chainsaw. I have a pretty decent chainsaw and even have a log splitter, and so for the most part that's how I do it. But what if those break down, or fuel is just difficult or near impossible to get those tools working? What do I do then? Well, I have backups. I have old-fashioned crosscut saws, of course, splitting mauls and splitting wedges, which we use those also. The big one is the splitter. The hydraulic splitter is more for the big stuff, but we have tools, axes, saws, splitting mauls, wedges, mallets, things like that, like they used back in the old days before you had all the modern wood cutting equipment. And so we have that just in case. It's not that we use it all the time, but it's there when it's needed. That kind of thing, other tools that, you have a great electric, battery operated Makita, Milwaukee, DeWalt drill. Well, what happens when you can't charge it, or when it just, fails because of something breaks, or the batteries no longer hold charge and you can't replace them? Do you have a way to drill a hole in a piece of wood without using your electric fancy drill? Think about that kind of stuff. Medicines. A lot of people, they have their first aid supplies and their basic medicines. Well, your first aid supplies, if you have a good first aid kit, that's great. But I've said before, most of those first aid kits are 1 or 2 time use, meaning that, whatever you've paid for, whatever you've got, after you use it once or twice, you've used up everything in it. And then what do? Do you have your own backup supply, your own little warehouse? Are you buying bandages and gauze and other medical items in bulk? It's not expensive at all. I've made videos on this where you can buy large cases of gauze for really just a few dollars, $10, $15 for, several thousand of them. Do you have some more advanced medical, needs and equipment? And I'm not talking doing open heart surgery, but things that are a little bit more serious. What do you do for severe burns and broken bones? And if someone in your family or community has a baby, these kind of things. Do you know how to check blood pressure and just do some more advanced, maybe moderate medical needs? And even if it's not something that you know how to do, maybe there's someone in your group that does know how to do. So you have the supplies to do that. Certainly something to think about. And same thing with medicines. Have a stockpile of medicines, and for the medicines that you can't get, do you know how to make your own? Do you know how to look to alternative, medicines, natural medicines? Have you explored that? Which brings me to another thing that you should be prepping is your skills. Your skills is way more important than the stuff that you have. It just is. Yes, it's good to have stockpiles and you know, all this stuff that you've put away and you've purchased and you've sealed up and it's ready to go. But if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the knowledge and the mindset to really survive and figure things out, all that stuff that you've bought isn't going to do you a whole lot of good. You need to have the mindset, the ability to figure something out. You know, what happens if something comes across your path and you just don't have the stuff for that. You didn't think about that, and you didn't stockpile those materials to do that one particular thing. Well, then that comes into that old hillbilly ingenuity. And you figure out a different way. You know, can you dig through a garbage dump or a, you know, scrap yard and find random pieces and figure out a way to use them to fix what you need? This is something that used to be pretty common back in the old days, especially out in the country. I can remember growing up, working on farms and seeing how these old timers could fix something out of nothing, or they could take just random scrap pieces of whatever and make it work for what they need. They didn't have to run to the farm store or to the hardware store all the time. Redeveloping those kind of skills is going to be really important. Another thing that I mention all the time is view your piece of property, your home and your property, as an island. Meaning that what would you do if it was completely cut off from the outside world? Not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying that put it into that perspective. What would you do if it was cut off from the outside world? How would you plan to survive? Whether it's food, water, heat, medicine, shelter, defense, all of that, if you were cut off from the outside world. It's something to think about. And if you view it through those lenses, a lot of times it kind of helps you see things that you have missed along the way. And as you're going about your daily chores and stuff around the property, you know, start to think, wow, well, you know, can I do this, you know, this particular chore, whatever I'm using to do this chore? If I'm cut off from the outside world, what would I need, you know, in case this tool breaks down, or, you know, all the times that I've gone to the hardware store or the farm store, what am I getting? Are there ways that I can have a backup plan to that? This is the kind of thinking that you need to do, because it's possible that this could be a future situation for a lot of people. Basically just, it's not so much of being some advanced know-it-all, it's really kind of being a jack of all trades and trying to figure out what you need to do that. It's very important for us to be thinking along these lines, and of course, above all, be producing as much food as you can. Gardening, foraging, food forests, you know, greenhouse, hoop house, raising different animals, you know, eggs, chickens, that kind of stuff. Third largest egg factory in the United States burned out to the ground over the weekend. Over 100,000 chickens, they say, died in it. So it's just, that whole situation is just going to continue to get worse, it looks like. So what can you do on your property to prevent, you know, that problem happening? What can you produce? Can you expand your production? What animals can you produce, and how will they benefit you? And then how will you take care of them if you're cut off from the outside world? Start thinking along these lines, and I think that you'll every day start to realize, wow, that's an area I hadn't thought of before. It happens to us around here, and we do this all the time. I've been doing it for a long time. And we still, my wife will come to me and she's like, you know, I was thinking about this or that. And, you know, we don't really have anything prepped up for that. You know, what do we do with that? Well, we probably should have a few supplies, or we should probably figure out a backup alternative way to do something. Start doing that kind of stuff now, and that's where you're going to start really getting into your more advanced preparedness, where you're really capable of thriving without the dependence of the outside world. Folks, it's now time to get your house in order. It's time to get ready, prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.